Hi there, and welcome to the Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life, using real food, and we keep it real simple. And today, I'm gonna make an all-in-one pot dinner that is so fast and easy. It comes together in no time at all, and it's absolutely delicious. And don't tell anyone, it's healthy. We're gonna use some quinoa and some other ingredients, and we're gonna make a Mediterranean-inspired vegetarian quinoa. But don't worry, if you're a meat lover, you can add some meat in, and I will tell you how to do that in just a little bit. But the first thing we wanna do is get the Ninja Foodi turned on. We wanna go on the sear saute, high is what we want, and hit that start button. And then we're gonna add in 1 tablespoon, I'm not gonna measure, but you can measure if you wanted, about a tablespoon of olive oil. We're gonna let that heat up, and then we're gonna toast up 1.5 cups of multicolored quinoa. Now, quinoa comes in 3 different colors, or it comes in a package with all the colors mixed together. I prefer that because I think it's beautiful, but you could use all white quinoa, that would be fine. You could use the brown or the black, that's fine. This is just a mixture of all of them. And I think it turns out gorgeous in this dish, so I like to use it. And I have a whole bulb of garlic that I just peeled and I left whole. Now, don't worry about this overpowering the dish. It doesn't, I promise you. It becomes very, very mild when we pressure cook. So we're gonna add in the garlic right to the olive oil. Get that last little clove out there. And that's a whole bulb, not just a clove, a whole bulb. And we're gonna add in 1.5 cups of rinsed quinoa. I do recommend you rinse your quinoa, even though most of the prepackaged kinds that you get at the store are already rinsed. I just give it a quick rinse. You don't have to rinse it like you do rice until the water runs clear. Just give it a nice quick rinse and you'll be good to go. So now we're gonna let this heat up. And what I usually do if I'm making this at home, and not on a video, is I do all my prep now. Because this can saute from 2 minutes up to 7 minutes. It's gonna be just fine. Stir it every once in a while, and we toast up that quinoa and really get that garlic starting to cook, and oh, it's so delicious. But since I talk about all the ingredients, and it's sometimes hard to talk and chop, I already have my prep done. So I'm gonna go over the other ingredients that we're gonna add, and I'm gonna start with the spices, because that's what makes this Mediterranean. Now, you could change up the spices. I mean, you could make this into a taco type of meal. That would be perfectly fine. Just change up your seasonings and you can change the entire meal and use the same recipe minus the spices that I'm using. So what I have here is 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of dried basil leaves, 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, just normal table pepper. I have 1/2 teaspoon of parsley and 1/2 teaspoon of oregano. So those are the seasonings that I'm gonna use in this dish. I also have a heaping cup of green onions. Now, you don't have to use green onions. You can use leeks. You could use a regular white onion, a yellow onion. Whatever you have is going to be fine, so don't worry about it. But I'm using some green onions. I've tested the recipe with leeks and I loved it, but when I went to the grocery store, I couldn't find them. So green onions it is. And that's how easy it is to substitute things when you're cooking. So we're gonna use green onions today. I also have 4, actually I think this is 5 mini peppers. And the mini peppers that I use come in a little bag like this. And I just slice them up into rounds. I don't even de-seed them. I love using these because they last a little bit longer than a bell pepper, in my opinion. And they're multicolored, and I just love using them. But you could use a bell pepper, whether it's orange, red, yellow, you could even use green if you wanted. Just use 2 bell peppers if you're not gonna use the sweet peppers, and you'll be fine. All right, the next thing, black olives. Now these olives are already sliced. You could get them in a can, not sliced, and slice them up, that's fine. But this is a 2.5 ounce can of sliced olives with the juice. I'm using the juice because that's gonna add flavor to our dish. Now I'm hearing this sizzle, so I'm gonna go ahead and give it a nice little stir here. All right. Next ingredient, green olives. You can omit those if you don't want. You can omit the black olives. You can omit the peppers. I mean, you know how I work. You can omit anything you want. If you use the basic ingredients with the liquid amounts and the timing, you're gonna be just fine. So these are whole green olives with 2 tablespoons of the juice. So it's about a half of a cup or 6 large olives. These are very large. If you have the smaller ones, you're gonna use a little bit more. So about a half of a cup of the olives and then 2 tablespoons of the juice. Now I'm gonna cut these in half before I add them in, but you could chop them up if you wanted them finer. You could leave them whole. I've done it both ways and it's just fine. We have 1 cup of water and I'm gonna add in a tablespoon of Miner's vegetable stock. Now this is my preferred brand is Miner's. They have a bunch of different stocks available, but you can't get them in the grocery store. They're only available on Amazon. And I just absolutely love them. I think that the flavor is superb, but you could also substitute with a regular prepared vegetable stock from the grocery store. Just use 1 cup. We're going to add this to 1 cup of water. So just add 1 cup, or you could use, I think Better Than Bouillon has a vegetable stock. You can use that as well. If you're not vegetarian, you could use chicken stock, especially if you're going to add in chicken, into your dish. You could add chicken stock. That's fine. You could probably even add beef stock, but I have not tried that, so I don't know how it's going to taste. And then I have 1/2 of a cup of artichokes that were just in water. Now you could use whatever kind you wanted. It doesn't matter. These are just little artichokes that come in a jar packed in water, and it's 1/2 of a cup. I did not intentionally get any water, but there is some water there, and that's gonna be just fine. Don't worry about that. Then we have 2 cups, this is actually probably 2.5 cups, of frozen Normandy blend that has the zucchini, squash, cauliflower, and carrots in it. This, I'm using frozen. You could probably get away with using fresh, but zucchini and squash is gonna get really, really soft if it's fresh, but you can use it. It'll be fine. This even gets a little bit soft, to be honest with you, but it still tastes absolutely delicious. So you could also use fresh cauliflower. You could use broccoli. You could use string beans. I mean, you could use whatever you want. We are only going under pressure for 1 minute with a 5-minute pressure release, so it's a really quick dish. Now I'm hearing it pop a little bit, so I'm gonna give it another little stir, and we are ready to get going with the rest of our ingredients. So the first thing I'm gonna put in is the vegetable base. I might have called it stock earlier. It's vegetable base. And I'm gonna add that in now just because I kind of want it to combine with the quinoa and make sure that we don't get little pockets of it. I want it to be equally mixed. And then I am going to add in our 1 cup of water. Now, if you're using a vegetable stock from the grocery store pre-prepared, you would just use 1 cup of it. Same with the chicken stock, 1 cup. All right. And the reason why we're using 1 cup, even though quinoa typically is a 1-to-1 ratio when you're pressure cooking, we're using 1 cup because we've got a little bit of juice here, we've got some juice here, and we're gonna get some liquid from our frozen vegetables, so we don't wanna make this soupy. This is not a soupy dish. This is a beautiful dish that's all made in 1 pot, really easy. All right, let's get in the artichokes, the seasoning blend, the black olives, the peppers, the green onions, the frozen vegetables, which is going to stop that boiling a little bit. Mix it around. All right, you can still leave it on high. It's perfectly fine. I'm just gonna chop these olives in half and throw them in. I'm gonna use 2 vine ripe tomatoes, and I'll show you how I cut them. But you don't have to. If you didn't wanna buy tomatoes and you had a can of diced tomatoes, you could use those. Just drain the juice because we don't need any extra liquid at this point. All right, put that olive juice in. That's very important. It's going to give a lot of flavor. Now with the tomatoes, the only thing I do is slice them like this and throw them in. Okay? Real easy. No dicing, no specific size. I love dishes like this, honestly. All right, look around. Let's see. Did I forget anything? No. I do have some cheese here. That's for after we cook. And I also have a little bit of green onions left that I will garnish with after we cook. Lemon would be great too to garnish with, but I don't have any, so we're not going to do that today. All right. Now, it's boiling. I'm going to give it a stir. It's gorgeous. This is such a gorgeous dish. I love it. It was shockingly easy too. All right, put our pressure lid on. Now you know, because we're boiling in there, it's not going to take any time to come to pressure. I'm going to make sure the valve is to the seal. I'm going to hit the pressure button. High is what we want. We're going to go for 1 minute. So we're going to let this pressure cook for 1 minute, and then we're going to do a 5-minute natural release, and then we will be ready to plate and eat. That's it. It's so simple, and this one is delicious. Now, I did tell you that I would tell you how to add in meat to this dish. You want to use cooked turkey or chicken, or even if you wanted to add steak, just make sure that it is going to either cook in the 1 minute pressure cook time, so thinly sliced steak would be fine, or already cooked chicken or turkey. And the best way I find to do that is to use a turkey or chicken breast that is cubed fairly large, just because it looks really nice in the dish. You don't want the chicken or turkey to kind of disappear. You want it to be there. So you make it a good size chunk, probably about a 2x2 cube would be good. And then put them in there, and they can pressure cook, even though they're already cooked. They don't dry out. It's perfectly fine. That's how I made it last night, and it was absolutely delicious. But because this really screams like vegetables and quinoa, and I just wanted to make it vegetarian for everybody out there that follows the vegetarian diet. This one is for you. So we're gonna omit the chicken or the turkey, but if you wanna add it, you certainly can. All right, so we are just about to release the rest of the pressure. It went under pressure in about 8 minutes. It took about 7 minutes for the pin to pop, whether yours is silver or red. It took about 7 minutes. And then it took another minute to actually start the countdown. So now we've been counting down for almost 5 minutes, or counting up, I should say. This is the natural release, and we're gonna go ahead and release the pressure, and I'm gonna chop up the garnish. All right, the pin popped down. That means that we can open the lid. Do that away from you always, because it is steamy. And here we go. All right. Oh, it smells so good. So let's just give it a little stir around here. Wow, that looks good. Now mine is a little bit runnier than it was on the test batches. And I'm not sure why, to be honest with you. Sometimes that happens. Don't worry about it. You could use a slotted spoon, but I don't think I need to worry. I'm just gonna scoop some out here. It looks beautiful. Get some cauliflower. Oh my goodness, that looks so good. Yeah, I'm really not sure about why there's more liquid in there than there was in the test batches. But again, just use a slotted spoon. You're gonna be fine. All right, here we go. A little bit of garnish of the green onion, totally optional. Also, I'm gonna use a little bit of feta cheese. That is also totally optional. You don't have to do that. But I like the little, I don't know, kind of the flavor difference, a little bit salty. I just love that. All right, let's see. First of all, let's see how the quinoa is cooked, because that's most important. That is perfect. So I don't like my quinoa really overdone. I like mine to have a little bit of a bite to it. So kind of like an al dente pasta. If you wanted your quinoa a little bit more done, you could certainly do a longer pressure release. And that would also help get rid of some of that liquid. So that could be the issue, is that I didn't do a long enough pressure release. So probably in my written recipe, I'm gonna write for an 8 to 10 minute pressure release instead of the 5, because I'm adapting, and I always adapt every time I make a recipe. Even if I've tested it a gazillion times, I always like kind of change it up again and again until I get it absolutely perfect. Now see, for me, the vegetables not being overdone is more important than having a little bit of soup or a little bit of extra liquid. What you could do is it's still like kind of bubbling too, is you could actually just put your pressure lid back on and not even go under pressure. Just put your pressure lid back on. You're gonna meet like a little resistance, so pull down because there's some steam still being built. Make sure it's vented and just leave that going for a little bit. And that is also gonna help finish up cooking the quinoa if it's not done to your liking. Personally, I think it's great this way. All right, let's get a little bit of that tomato, a little bit of the feta. This is simply fabulous. I love it. It's hot. That was hot. I'm gonna need to take a break. You can leave that in, Jeff. I also burned my hand today. I was so silly. I was cleaning the Ninja Foodi, getting ready for the video, and I had it on broil so I could wipe, the air crisping lid. I reached in and I grabbed the pot. Like, total space cadet. Grabbed the pot. It had been broiling for 10 minutes, and I just reached in to grab it barehanded, so I burned my hand. So now I burn my mouth, so matching pair. All right. Maybe I'll not talk so much. Artichoke and black olive. My favorite, the green olive. I love this. I absolutely love this dish. Absolutely love it. But I am going to call for a longer natural release next time, because I don't want you to have to worry about this and having it soupy. It wasn't soupy in my test batches, but the vegetables were a little bit more done than I liked. When the trade-off happens, I think I'm going to go with a longer natural release in the recipe. So what I want you to do is pressure cook for 1 minute and do a 10-minute natural release. That's what I'm going to call for in the recipe, and that's what I want you guys to do. And I think you're going to have an absolute perfect outcome. Meanwhile, I'm going to let this go for a few minutes, and I'm going to show you the difference after it sits in here a little bit longer, okay? All right, so now I didn't change any settings. We are still on the keep warm. I simply put the lid back on and left it vented for probably about, 5 to 7 minutes. We can look back on the video and tell you exactly how long. And this is gonna kind of mimic a longer natural release. Even though we're not building any pressure, we're letting it all kind of release out. And I think that we will have a little bit better luck. Well, I can see right now that the quinoa has now totally sprouted. Now that's not my preference. So I don't like when the quinoa is totally sprouted, but some people do. It's gonna be softer for you. I like it, so we can actually do a little comparison here because I think it's very interesting. So this is quinoa totally sprouted. I hope you can see that. I'm not sure that you're gonna be able to. I'll have to get a close-up picture one day so I can show you. But it's totally sprouted. There's like little sprouts coming out. And I like when it just starts to sprout, which we have going on right here. So they're still closed, but they're just starting to sprout. That's how I like to eat my quinoa, but everybody has their own preference, just like with rice. So you need to adjust your recipes accordingly. But for the majority of people, I think they're gonna prefer a longer natural release, so that's what I'm gonna go with in the recipe. So 1 minute pressure cook, 10-minute natural release, you're gonna have a delicious dinner. And I'm gonna taste it and let you know. I don't even need any garnishes on this one. It's good. I still prefer that way better, but I know other people will prefer this. So I'm gonna write the recipe this way, but if you wanna try it my way, feel free. Let me know in the comments how you liked it. Both plates are delicious. And remember, if you want to add meat to this, add meat to it. If you want to change up the seasonings, change up the seasonings. This would be delicious as a taco dinner. Believe it or not, just use taco seasoning instead of my seasonings. As always, change it up, make it yours, and make it delicious.